year is 1925, and American icon Helen Keller attends a meeting of Lions Club members and asks them to take up her cause and be Knights of the Blind, be ambassadors for those needing services for sight and hearing. And here it is almost 90 years later, and Lions Club members, particularly here in Oregon, have kept this promise to Helen Keller by advocating for her and helping people in need of sight and hearing issues. Those of you that have tuned into Knights of the Blind have known that we've interviewed local people that, again, have exemplified this promise that was made to Helen Keller so many years ago. Tonight, our guests, a little bit more unique. A couple of Knights here from LT Public Relations. We have Mr. Casey Boggs and Mr. Kurt Heath. Gentlemen, thanks for being here tonight.
Doug, great to be here.
Yeah.
So you're PR men, not exactly mad men, you're PR men. I know that there's a little bit, maybe in my own mind, a misunderstanding on what's PR versus advertising or marketing. We're going to get into how you as PR professionals have helped the organizations with their PR.
Yeah, and appreciate the question. Thanks for having us on, by the way. This is
Absolutely.
wonderful. Yeah, the public relations definition is hard to define because I think everyone's got their own definition of PR. And a lot of times the misperception of it is it's all about spin. We're spin doctors, or we are there just for crisis. Yes, we help in those regards, but I think it's important to take away that we're in the business of storytelling. We tell the stories of nonprofits, we tell the stories of for-profits, but we find the best ways of telling a story. So it's not really kind of crafting the message, but also too finding the outlets to tell that story. So one way of kind of exemplifying all this is that, if there is news that should be disseminated or provided, that's our job. We understand the news and we're finding the outlets to tell that story. And also reputation. It's all about the reputation of nonprofits or reputation of for-profit companies. Our job is to manage those reputations. And how to do so? Well, we try to put our ear to the ground of actually what's being discussed and how it's being discussed, and then decide how to best portray the company and that reputation. So it's really public relations is relationships with the public. What relationships do you want to have with your public, and what outlets you're going to communicate to them.
Okay, and you're based in the Portland area.
We are.
In fact, if I understand it, pretty much kind of right downtown in a great part of Portland, and of course, to be successful and to stay in business, you have for-profit clients that you help out with their public relations. But you have this thing that also helps nonprofits, and that's how the relationship with the Lions was developed, and it's through your nonprofit challenge. Can you tell us a little bit about that? We'll get into a little bit later towards the end, but in a nutshell, what is the LTPR Nonprofit Challenge?
Yeah, so it started back in 2010 with the idea that we wanted to give back to the community. And writing a check from an organization to an organization didn't make much sense. We thought that one check's not really going to help, but public relations and the power of public relations could really help. And so we thought, well, let's give up our time, our services, our talents to a deserving nonprofit. And so we had a nomination committee as well as a form for local nonprofits to fill out to see who might be a deserving nonprofits. The crazy thing is that we had such an alarming, phenomenal response that it was very hard to decide on who's most deserving. But at any rate, we did select for the first year Financial Beginnings, which is a financial literacy organization that helps people who are woefully undersaved to educate them and help tell their stories and get the good word out that saving is important. And then as years progressed, we've identified some others as well. And our job is not just simply to help them, just for 1 year, but to teach them how to do public relations. So it's kind of teach them how to fish, if you will,
Sure.
and give them kind of the tools that they need to help tell their stories. So we found it as a pretty powerful tool to get the word out there for them, and our way of, frankly, giving back.
It's great. And, I will say, as somebody that has worked with nonprofits quite a bit, nonprofits do like it when people write the check.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
But of course, there's significant value to pro bono work, and I love the concept of teaching somebody to fish as opposed to just simply giving them a fish. So the Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation, those that have watched this program are learning more about the sight and hearing programs that the Sight and Hearing Foundation provides to people in need. And I know that, Kurt, you were real hands-on in teaching the Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation how to fish in terms of public relations. What have you learned about the Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation in the last year that you've helped them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the first thing that I've learned is that it exists, which I recall when the organization applied for the nonprofit challenge. I remember that one of the things they said was that the staff said is that they were the foundation's the best kept secret in Oregon. And having worked now with the foundation for a year, I think that's true. How many people know, how many Oregonians know that there is an organization here in Oregon that's probably one of the strongest, largest, most sophisticated hearing and vision screening programs in the country, and there's a huge need out there, and so I've learned about the need, but I've also been encouraged because I've learned about the fact that there's an organization like the foundation here who's really helping people and making a difference in people's lives and having a real impact.
Yeah, so you made that comment about best kept secret, and the initial thought is, hey, we're the best kept secret, but that's really not what nonprofits want. Of course, they'd rather, if there were rankings for, who's the best kept secret, you'd rather not be in the top 20 of that ranking. And I know that, again, the Oregon Lions have really enhanced their profile, not just in the metro area here, but really throughout the state of Oregon, as a result of the support that you've helped them with. And there's a number of programs. We're in the midst of our sixth episode here, and in earlier programs we've had a corporate supporter that provides hearing aids through this Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation, and there's been talk about a program where people get free eyeglasses, and then there's programs where children receive sight and hearing screening, and we're going to talk about some of these programs and how you've helped the foundation raise that profile. But again, getting back to how you've helped the Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation, 11, 12 months is a significant period of time. Are there any stories that jump out at you, or any particular specific projects or programs that the Lions do that you're especially proud of or are impressed by?
Well, yeah, it's hard to choose which one. And again, that's part of the challenge that you all have, the foundation has, in terms of public relations, is that it has a lot to talk about. And so you have every nonprofit typically, unless it's a really large one, has limited staff, limited resources. And so the challenge is, well, which program are we going to talk about? How are we going to do it? And how are we going to allot that time to do it? In terms of the programs that I really like, and I like all of them, Mission Cataract stands out, and having the opportunity to help try to promote some of the surgeries that the foundation has provided to low-income Oregonians in particular. And part of that is, I wasn't aware of this, but learning that blindness, the majority of time, is caused by cataracts, if you look at worldwide, a disease that is preventable. And so you have a lot of Oregonians, really people across the world, but Oregonians in particular dealing with the foundation, who aren't getting the treatment that they should, whether it's because the surgery costs more than $6,000 and their insurance doesn't cover it, they don't have the money for it. And the great thing about the foundation is that it's here to help. And so to make sure that people can get the word about the fact that there is an organization that's out there that can provide the kind of treatment that's available. No Oregonian should go blind because they can't get the cataract surgery they need.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned that, in a moment here, we're going to put the number and I think the email address for the Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation up on the screen, so that either if you are out there and you yourself are in need, or you know of somebody, a family member, a relative, a neighbor that is losing their sight, whether it's from a cataract or maybe they need a corneal transplant, this is what the Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation does, and they help people statewide. There's some amazing partnerships that have been developed, and part of it is because of the enhanced visibility of this program that LTPR helped provide for the Lions. Recently, Legacy Good Samaritan has come on board and joined the Mission Cataract team. There's providers in Medford and Roseburg and Brookings and Eugene, and soon in Salem. There'll be ophthalmologists that will be donating their time, providing free cataract surgery. The facilities are donated, I understand. The anesthesia is donated, even the little lenses. I've been told that if we're lucky to live long enough, we will develop cataracts. It's just inevitable. And what happens when surgery takes place is that the hardened cataract is removed, and then it's replaced by a little plastic artificial lens. They're donated. So everything about these Mission Cataract surgeries are donated. And again, due to your ability to help the Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation become more visible and not be the best kept secret. Darn, they're not the best kept secret anymore. More people are jumping on board and helping with this effort. So actually, Mission Cataract is a nationwide program that until the Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation got involved really wasn't happening in Oregon. And so again, the foundation's really excited to soon we'll be working with a group out of Chehalis, Washington that happens to have facilities in Oregon. We'll be joining, and perhaps a future episode of Knights of the Blind will, our guest will be that cataract surgery group, again as a result of your work helping the foundation raise their profile. So thanks for doing that. And before we talked about more of the programs, let's get back a little bit to the issue of public relations. You know, most businesses have in their budget, or they have their own professional PR people, but we're talking about nonprofits here. And again, I have enough experience to know that a lot of nonprofits just don't, when they develop their annual budget, you know, they don't say, well, we're going to spend $50,000 on PR this year. You know, if a viewer is a board member or a staff member for a nonprofit, what are some things that they could do right away to enhance their public relations, enhance their profile?
Sure. I think there's three areas that's important to make the distinction between public relations and marketing and advertising. That marketing and advertising are important. There's no doubt about it. But we usually put that into a bucket of paid media. This is how much you have to spend to actually pay for that advertising, that marketing, to tell your story and get the word out there. We all are familiar with advertising, either through publications or radio or billboards. But what we do is called earned media, which is essentially free. All you're trying to do is tell your story. But the important aspect here is identifying the influencers. You know, one of them is obviously media, one of them is social media, but who else in your group that we want to identify that will help tell your story? And that's your local chambers. That could be political figures, community leaders, people, associations. Do they know your story? Do they understand your story? Yeah, have you been connected with from time to time? Telling that story is free. You're earning their trust. You're earning their understanding of who you are, and inevitably they're going to tell your story using the outlets that they have. So that's earned. And then owned media. So there's earned media, there's paid media, and then owned media is something that you're always providing. So that's very free as well, which is great. So you can write blogs, meaning you can write content about what's going on. So for instance, you know, cataracts is education of sorts. You can actually post things on your social media. You can write letters. You can post things on your newsletter. A whole host of different outlets to own your own media and tell your own story. And again, it's free. So it's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, you know, social media is such an amazing opportunity for nonprofits to again raise their profile. Yet, and you know, so many people have Facebook pages, and really almost all generations are even beginning to have Twitter accounts. But most of us really don't know how to use them effectively. And if I understand it right, it's something that you really helped the Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation do, is actually develop a social media plan. It's one thing again to have these accounts, but how do you strategically use them to your benefit? Because you probably not every story do you need to be telling. But can you talk a little bit about social media?
Sure.
Especially through the lens of, for people that maybe they kind of know what Facebook is, but they maybe don't fully use it a whole lot. Or what are some ways that nonprofits can utilize social media to tell that story?
Yeah, it's a mouthful because there's a lot to social media, there's no doubt. But if you see it as purely a communication vehicle where you're trying to engage, the word engage, make sure that you're trying to bring people into the mix as far as who you are, what story you're trying to tell, social media is a great outlet to do so. For instance, Twitter. Twitter seems like it's an ongoing effort that you have to always feed and make sure you're telling your story and getting the word out there. Yes, it is, but it's a great way also too to put your ear to the ground as far as what's happening within your particular industry. And so, not engaging with it means there's conversations are happening without you. People are talking about matters that are important. If you are engaged with it, that means you are part of the conversations and the discussion. So Twitter is actually a good outlet, a free outlet to kind of listen and hear and be a part of that conversation. Facebook, on the other hand, is very similar. You're disseminating news, but you're personifying the nonprofit or your organization. You're showing a little bit more of the inside, personality of what the organization's all about. So, who is Doug Thompson? Are these other folks that are part of Oregon Lions? Who are the people who make up the organization? That's what people want to know. People want to associate than simply just a name on the wall. They want to do business. They want to engage with personalities. So Facebook helps post pictures, post news, post idiosyncrasies, post odd things about your organization that you didn't quite know, stats, information, so people can understand you a little bit better and have conversations with you.
Well, and I'll tell you from experience, from a nonprofit standpoint, it's great to get the story told in the newspaper. And some nonprofits are lucky to have a television program, on the airwaves. But with social media, that story can be told and then seen by somebody on the other side of the world. And
Many
support can come in from areas that you would just never dream
Right.
that it could be possible.
Agreed.
So, yeah, I don't think that anybody has even really totally scratched the surface of how social media can tell a story, and that in turn then can help generate support and resources, so a nonprofit can help more people.
And that's not strictly a nonprofit issue. I think even clients that we work with, for-profit companies still are wrestling with how they utilize social media to the benefit and tell their story. Given the limited staff resources, et cetera, that most face, it's important to look at the different mediums and then decide, maybe we can't do all of them right now. Let's prioritize. We're going to start out with, X channel. Maybe it's Facebook, because you can more easily tell that story through testimonials, et cetera. So just being able to say, in some sense, prioritize and maybe even postpone engaging more fully on one channel so that you can really focus on another and tell your story better that way.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, one area that Kurt brought up is about testimonials. Every for-profit and nonprofit has testimonials. If you're doing good for people, or you're helping, your service or product is helping, get other people to tell your story. And you can do so through social media outlets. YouTube is a great way of doing it. And just simply having your smartphone videotape them, saying, hey, how did we provide value to you? Nothing more than 30 seconds, 60 seconds tops, and then put that onto your social media channel, and voila, you have an instant testimonial, and it's true. It has a kind of call to action and personifies a little bit more of the value that you provide. And it's wonderful, and it's, by the way, free. So it's a great outlet.
It's a great tip.
Yeah.
I mean, because I can tell our audience what a great guy I am, but if Kurt tells our audience what a great guy I am, then
no longer the best kept
guy.
secret.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Great. Hey, okay, so that's a really good tip for nonprofits and for-profits. Speaking of again, programs that we're doing and telling stories, let's talk a little bit about kids, because we all know that the Lions really have a soft spot in their hearts for helping kids.
Absolutely.
And there's you made a comment earlier about this realization that the Oregon Lions are one of the premier school-based health screening organizations in the United States. And tell us a little bit about this recent legislation. I believe it's House Bill 3000, which is going to make it possible for more children to have their vision screened in schools. Let's talk a little bit about that and how it's going to help kids ultimately learn more.
Yeah, well, I think the governor signed that bill into law, so it's officially a law now. And I think it really lawmakers are acknowledging the importance of catching vision problems when the children are young. Conditions like amblyopia, which you're not going to detect unless you get screened, lead to blindness. We know that children who struggle, they need eyeglasses, they have vision problems, they struggle in school, more behavioral problems. So it's very important that children get screened, and schools are one of the obvious ways to conduct screenings, because they're sort of a captive audience. So they can't go anywhere. They're there. They've got to be
Right.
in class. And so HB 3000 really what it does is it mandates that school that parents provide documentation that their children are screened, and so schools, I think, are going to continue to be the most significant conduit to conduct those screenings. And Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation, with their reach statewide and the sophistication of their equipment, can conduct these screenings in a more cost-effective fashion for schools. They can do it more efficiently so that kids are not taken out of the classroom as much. And if you know your audience hasn't seen these photo screeners, you've never done a show where you kind of demonstrate them, you really ought to, because it is amazing the technology, what they can do, and how effective that they are. And so I think there's a real opportunity for Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation to step in and fill that void and really help schools. It really help the schools because school budgets are stretched. You know, school nurses are decreasing in number in some cases. They're stretched. And here you've got the foundation who can come in and provide these screenings and make sure these children are getting documented. And really you're helping the parents as well.
Absolutely.
Who have to document the fact that their child has been screened.
Yeah. So the deal is, you know, when we were all kids, and probably most of our viewers, when you were kids, we all had our vision screened in school, either in the cafeteria or the gymnasium. Right. And we looked at that chart on the wall that had the E's. And I think I admitted at a previous show that, you know, when I was in 5th grade, I had glasses and I forgot them, and so I cheated. You know, my buddy, you know, would touch me on the back on which way the E was, so I passed my test. And as a kid, I bring that up because kids will do whatever they can just to pass a test. They don't want to fail. But the reality is that kids that are not seeing to their potential are not reading well, probably, and they're not learning to their potential. So the program that we're describing here is really going to not only save kids, you know, preserve their ability to learn well, but it's saving their vision. For, you mentioned amblyopia, or lazy eye, as most of us refer to it as. Children that have that and it's not detected, they go blind in that eye. And so these devices that we have had on the show, but we'll have them back again, it replaces that wall chart.
Right.
And this margin of error, this human margin of error, saying, well, I think he might be 20, 40. Now we take a snapshot of the child's eye. And it's a wireless computer that instantly has results, and it can instantly let the school know, you know, who needs to get an eye exam, and, you know, who needs glasses, who can be learning better. And it's just really exciting that House Bill 3000 has passed, and the state of Oregon may start funding school-based vision screening. And the Oregon Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation will utilize LTPR to better tell this story and get into the schools and save more kids' sight.
Sure.
With that bottom line being, you know, help kids be healthy, help them learn. And the beauty of it all is that kids that learn well tend to be successful in life and are productive members of their community.
Absolutely.
So on behalf of the Lions in Oregon and the Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation, thank you LTPR for helping us tell that story. And it played a role in getting House Bill 3000 passed. So it's
Our
fantastic.
pleasure. It's our pleasure.
You bet. So you helped the Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation in so many ways over the course of 2013. Looking forward, I know you're going to pick, you've picked one nonprofit for 2014. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization and maybe even how you can help them?
Sure, yeah. So this year, 2014, we selected JOIN, which is a homeless organization, or an organization that actually helps the homeless cause in Portland metropolitan area. There's quite a bit of information and stats to help, but JOIN is really championing the cause to help people find the next level of housing, you know, that are on the streets. So we found them to be incredibly gracious, but also to forthcoming as far as what they want to accomplish in 2014. What really attracted to us is more lines of they have quite a few different initiatives in the coming year. So our job is to dissect how we're going to tell the story. You know, break it down. Okay, there's a lot to do. For most of all nonprofits will have a big story to tell, but how are we going to make these a little more of a bite-sized morsel to help them, you know, extend the story, but also too, what's the call to action? And so JOIN has quite a bit of stories to tell, and have quite a bit of call to actions, from volunteering to providing monies, so many different aspects that we're excited to be a part of. for 2014.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Now, I know that we're also going to put some information up on the screen so that, again, if you, the viewer, work for a nonprofit, or if you're a board member, or if you volunteer in another capacity, and you want to find out a little bit more about how to tell your story, we can connect you to LTPR, and that information is right there. There's a number 503-477 9211, and then ltpublicrelations.com. Emails can be accepted.
Sure.
Not a guarantee that you can,
Or
you know,
social media even.
yeah, or social media. So, you know, I will say, as somebody that has spent, you know, most of my career in nonprofit, it's a challenge to tell our story because we're so busy responding to
Yes.
the need that there's not always that time to develop our public relations plan for the year. Yet, it's important. It's critical to do so, because if we don't tell our story, then that's all we're doing, is we're putting out fires and chasing the need. I strongly recommend that all nonprofits, you know, develop a public relations committee, or you have some staff members that are dedicated to enhancing the PR and telling your story. I know it's paid off for the Lions, and it can, if it pays off for your nonprofit, then we all as a community end up benefiting from that.
Absolutely.
So again, gentlemen, thanks so much for that. Before we close, you know, I'm happy to hear a little bit more in a nutshell about Join, and, you know, who it is specifically that they serve, and how they'll benefit in terms of their clientele. Is it a statewide organization or a Portland organization?
Well, homelessness is obviously a national issue,
Sure.
and they Join gets their funding locally, but also too they look at other organizations across the nation as far as best practices and what they could do to help. But also too they look to other businesses as well to help fund their cause, because it really affects everyone. That it's not necessarily really a choice to be homeless, and they're trying to help people, you know, empower themselves to get to the next level. So our job is to make sure, you know, from a standpoint that the understanding of homelessness is captured, and as well as articulated, as far as also what people need to do to help tell their story and kind of get folks to a better place.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Casey and Kurt, thank you so much for helping nonprofits tell their story. Thank you
pleasure.
so much for helping the Lions Sight and Hearing Foundation tell our story. And thank you for being Knights of the Blind. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. All right.
Wow.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.